Howdy doody. And so, my boys, we are back. Welcome, welcome. Back at it again with chapter 45 now. 45 now of Beelzebub's Tales to his grandson. Good lordy. We've only got a couple left. And maybe they're going to be short chapters as well. I mean, there's about 100 pages left, odd pages left of the book entirely, but I gotta say, we're getting there, guys. We're getting there. We've been on a journey, all of us together. Both you and I. Yeah, howdy chat. Another guy in the chat. Bossmans, Kimberly, Ghoul. Welcome, welcome. Yeah, as I was saying, it's funny. There's only a couple more chapters. After this chapter, there's just 2 more, I believe, because there's 48 all up. Which I always found ironic, because it's like, you know, Gurdjieff talking about, you know, 7 cosmoses, law of 7 this, and heptaparaparshinok that, and then instead of going 7 times 7 and having a book with 49 chapters, he made a book with 48 chapters. Just couldn't, you know, just slide a mini chapter in there just to make it a nice round 49. But maybe that's symbolic in and of itself. Like he's saying that very last bit, that very last thing that completes the final octave, that's going to be our efforts. That's us. We have to complete it. But anyway, let's dive right in. Let's dive right in. Chapter 45. In the opinion of Beelzebub, man's extraction of electricity from nature and its destruction during its use is one of the chief causes of the shortening of the life of man. Very interesting take. I mean, just from the title alone, we know. You know, stay away from power lines, kids. But it seems, yeah, how we destroy nature and how we extract electricity from it seems to be damaging us. Gurdjieff, the original Greens Party. Okay, let's see what he says. So, after Beelzebub had listened to the contents of the Liatchunbros, which is like a recorder, and had put it by the side of the Sinua near him, that is something similar to an etagare. I'm pretty sure it's like a bookshelf, but instead of books you put knickknacks in it. He again deeply sighed and continued to speak as follows. Oh, hello. Sorry, I just saying hello to everyone in the chat. Hello, Dylan. Hello, Nick Evans. Oh, that's nice. Glad to have you here, Nick. Well, this is going to be like right at the end of the book, so you know, still get the book set for Christmas, but for your birthday. Sorry. What are you, an Aries or something? Ugh. No, I'm kidding. It's not Aries season. You'll be like a Gemini or a Cancer or something. Hey, Crimdim, howdy. Alrighty. Well, what's happening next? It would be only half a calamity for our common megalocosmos if the abnormalities of the ordinary existence of the 3-brained beings of this planet of yours had all kinds of bad consequences only for themselves, that is, for the 3-brained beings, which they are, and also for the possibilities of completely perfecting themselves with those higher being bodies. So we're kind of screwing ourselves, and which have already had the extreme misfortune to arise within them, or which will arise within them in future. Yeah, so we're just doubly screwed. Our misfortunes. We no longer become immortal like they do on other planets, and then when we die, we die. Yes, ignore electricity, acquire steampunk. God, imagine like living in a world where there was no crude, like a fantasy world of no crude oil. So even if you got isekai'd into that place and you did get like to introduce technologies, you wouldn't be able to go past steampunk, and then forever it would just be steampunk. Mwah. But now, the whole terror lies in this, that their abnormal existence already begins to have a repercussion and a harmful influence on the normal existence of the 3-brained beings who breed on quite different planets. So we're so bad that the spunk, the gunk, just floats to other planets and ruins everyone else's time. We're all stinky boys. Though it is true, belonging to the same solar system, and also have a harmful influence on the possibilities of the normal self-perfecting of their higher being parts coated in their common presences. Man, we are a problem. I happened to learn about this distressing fact of common cosmic character only just before my departure forever from the solar system ores. So the solar system ores is our solar system. So just like how we name planets, our solar system has a name, and Gurdjieff gives the esoteric name of our solar system as ores. So if our solar system was a dude, that's what his name would be. Hey, Tyler in the chat. Everyone's talking about steampunk now that I mentioned it. The most interesting information for you of all the events which have given cause for a clear constating and completed crystallizing in my common presence of the imperishable being data for the indubitable conviction of precisely such a common cosmic distressing fact. Now that's a paragraph right there. Might be the information that in this I was greatly helped by none other than the result, or as your favorites would say, the son of my essence friend, Gornahor Harhak. Now this is a call back. Remember our boy from Saturn. The young conscious individual, Gornahor Harhak. Oh no, sorry. So this is his son or stepson or something? Gornahor Rakhurk is a new guy now, who also, like his producer, okay, so it's the son, devoted the whole of his existence to the study of all the details of the properties of the cosmic omnipresent Okidanok. So following after, you're just like your father. And also, little by little, became worthy of being considered one of what are called higher degree common cosmic learned three brain beings. Okay, cool. So he's just like his dad. Hello, Yunes in the chat. Do you know, my boy, in consequence of the fact that all the events and conversations which served as the cause of the gradual elucidation and crystallization in me of the data of the indubitable conviction of such a common cosmic distressing fact are in general very interesting, and might be for you very instructive, and as only the reflections of the sphere of our dear Kratos are meanwhile visible. I will tell you also about this in somewhat greater detail. Yeah, please do. This is just like, that entire paragraph is just Beelzebub being like, let me tell you something. In order to give you a fuller representation about why in my being data has been crystallized for the constating and through cognizing of this, I shall tell you in its order about what proceeded and shall begin from the moment when, while still on this planet of yours, I first heard about my full pardon. As soon as I heard about this special, most glorious act of grace towards me, I of course decided at that very moment to return at the first opportunity to the dear essence place of my arising. So as soon as he was like, you're no longer banished, as soon as God was like, you're no longer banished, Beelzebub was like, oh my god, get me out of these. These are too many freaks. Too many freaks here. I want to go home. I wish I could do that. Wish we could all do that. Just go straight back to the absolute. It was so much simpler. And for this, it was necessary for me, first of all, to ascend to the planet Mars in order thoroughly to prepare for such a long journey. Several days after having left your planet forever, I, as always, returned to our same occasion on the planet Mars. Occasion is the name of the ship that they fly on. They have a spaceship called Occasion, just so that Gurdjieff can write in his books that they occasionally went to Earth. Lamau. Arriving there on the planet Mars, we soon received a command from above that I, and all other beings of our tribe who wished to return to the place of their arising should assemble on the planet Saturn using the ship Occasion on which planet that large intersystem ship omnipresent would land, which would bring us to our destination. So Gurdjieff goes back to Mars, and then everyone kind of gets in different ships, and they all go to Saturn, and then at Saturn, they then take the big tour bus all the way back to Karatus, Beelzebub's home planet, which this entire book, by the way, was just this ship going from Saturn to Karatus, and like Beelzebub at the start of his journey just telling his grandson about literally the beginning of the universe up until that point. So this is a crazy Ouroboros tale. We're just connecting now. It's like a James Joyce Ouroboros tale story where the beginning is now the end. Or we're going to overlap now. I nevertheless had to exist on the planet Mars for a certain time in order to liquidate all my personal affairs there and to give various orders concerning the beings of our tribe. Ah, Bobby and Two Crows in the chat. Hello, hello. And it was just at this time that I was told. I don't know why I sometimes make Beelzebub. He like gives me this, you know, British gentleman vibe. Like, I was told that the Toof Nef Tef, okay, so this is a new term, they very much wished to see me. Toof Nef Tef on the planet Mars is the name given to the being who is the head of all the three brain beings on this planet. And he is like that being who in the same position on your planet is called the King. I knew this Toof Nef Tef, or King, in his youth, when he was only a plef perf noof. Jesus, what is this? Dr. Zeus? Plef perf noof is almost the same as our Zerlickners on your planet Earth, i.e. physicians. So a guy who was a doctor eventually became king. So I wonder if this is like a little symbolic thing. So it's like he's a medicine king. Or a healer became a king or something. There's something, I don't know if there's something about that. Very interesting. Another guy asks, does higher being bodies exist, or does every higher being in the book worked for it? So that's just it. Normal beings that aren't retarded like us, that don't have remnants of the Kunda buffer organ, spontaneously always achieve park dog being duty. So it's not that they don't work for it, it's just that higher being bodies crystallize in three-brained beings naturally over a long period of time. So they also have long existences. So say they live like 10,000 years, so a higher being body would like code itself in, I don't know, like the first 3,000 years, and the next will be the next 3,000, the next will be in the next 3,000 or something like that. That's not a definite thing. I'm just using that as an example. I'm making that up. But like for these kind of beings that aren't degenerate like us, it seemed to be an automatic process. But for us, so many things have gone wrong and so many opportunities have been lost that basically for us what we have to, and our time span has just collapsed. So for us it's like whether we do it all in one life or we get the first higher being body and then have to reincarnate or something. That's why the work exists. The work exists for us. So it's, yeah, it's Jover. It's not just that it's Jover, it's like we gotta like Jesus take the wheel and we have to work for it. And then hopefully you get a higher being body. Whereas other beings, it just, because they have such a long time span and they're naturally in a state of self-remembering always, a higher being body just crystallizes in them just off the cuff, just eventually. Apropos, I must also tell you that on almost all the planets of our great universe, and likewise on the other planets of this solar system also, a being becomes the head of beings by merit, just from among these former plef perf noofs, or physicians. So it's really interesting. It seems like in the galaxy, kings get elected from the physician class, not from like lawyers or warriors or something. It's from healers. The healers become the kings. There's something very symbolic about that. my first meeting with the Martian Tufneftef took place when we first arrived in... Did he ever describe what, like, Martians look like? Because, you know, the Saturnian people look like crows. I'm thinking, like, Tufneftef, do they all just look like Jigglypuffs or something, or... Toofs? They've got big teeth, I don't know. Place. When we first arrived in this solar system and settled on the planet Mars, he was then a Plef-Perf-Noof. Gurdjieff just loves... He's... Oh my god, there's like... He's gonna use this term forever now, like, for the goddamn... Just on the planet... Just on the part of the surface of this planet, where I and all who came with me had the place of our residence. Yes, Jigglyplofnoff. Since then, existing on various parts of the surface of the planet Mars in the capacity of the Plef-Perf-Noof, he merited becoming the head over all the beings breeding on the planet Mars. And when he neared the state of the sacred Ishkmechk, so this is like one of those sacred names like Mortify, or I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but there's a bunch of them. He desired to return to just that part of the surface of his planet where he had spent his youth. That is why this former Plef-Perf-Noof, now Tufneftef, happened at that time to be near my place of residence on Mars. Bro. Chat's going off with the new Pokemon names. The Martian Tufneftef was, according to the notions of your favorites, already an extremely old being. He was, by the time calculation of the planet Mars, about 12,000 Martian years old, which is only a little less than the time calculation of the Earth. Okay, so he's an old boy. He's a grey Jigglypuff. Here, you must be told that on the planet Mars, the duration of the existence of beings in general is almost the same as that of the three-centered beings on all the other planets of our megalocosmos, excepting, of course, those beings who are directly formed from the first tetartocosmoses, and whose duration of existence may be 3 times as long. Damn. Okay. The three-brained beings arising and existing, and this chapter was supposed to be about electricity. What's going on? The three-brained beings arising existing on the planet Mars, as well as the three-centered beings of all those planets of our megalocosmos, on which an existence normally for the three-centered beings proceeds, also have full possibility of reaching the state of the sacred Ishkmech, namely that being state when the existence of a being already becomes dependent. Nice. Okay, so everything in the world is, or in the universe, is interdependent because of the law of Heptaparaparshinok, or, sorry, the law of the Trogo-Autoecocratic law, or the law of Iran Munji, whatever, however you pronounce that one. But basically everything is interdependent, or is dependent on other. Sorry, wait a second. Namely, that being state when the existence becomes dependent as regards of the most great cosmic runs only on those substances which arise directly from the manifestation of the most holy prime source. Okay, so I was thinking he was going to become independent of everything, like his own demiurge or something. But basically, if you reach this level, Ishkmech, it basically means you're a being that doesn't need to subsist on, like, you could say, like, food, or normal being food. You can basically just go off the rays of the sun, the holy source, basically. Hey, Coco in the chat. What up? True River King is here as well. Description of Martians is in chapter 3. What do they look like? Oh, man, it's been so long. They have a long, broad trunk, amply provided with fat. And their heads with enormous, protruding, shining eyes. On the back of their enormous planetary body of theirs are 2 large wings. Jeez, so they're like elephant people with squid eyes, like giant squid eyes, and bat wings? Bro, that's a crazy Pokemon. And on the underside, 2 comparatively small feet with strong claws. Bro, that's crazy. Don't worry, Bobby Two Crows. This is outside of all of our capacities. Yeah, we're struggling through this together as a team. With the power of friendship, we'll make it through. Yeah, it's almost Lovecraftian in a way. I don't know. It's almost Lovecraftian, but it bends back on itself and becomes more silly than it becomes, you know, mind bending. So, and not as it proceeds in the other beings whose existence depends on cosmic substances arising through the results of the all corresponding gravity center concentrations of the common cosmic fundamental Ansan-Baluazar. I'm pretty sure that's from a previous chapter, but I've completely forgotten what that was. Let's go back in time. What's up? What's up? And all the results issuing from all the cosmic sources, great and small, taken together, were also named by them the common cosmic and smart. So is this just a totality of substances? So in this context, so beings who reach Ishk-Mech are dependent. So beings that reach the state of Ishk-Mech are dependent from the totality of substances. They no longer need to draw from the totality of substances in existence and can just be independent from that, and so they can just depend on the Holy Sun Absolute, the emanations of the Holy Sun Absolute, to gain energies from. Okay. Sounds pretty based. Sounds pretty based. So this guy, basically, he's saying that the King of Mars is basically one of these dudes. Nice. And when they reach this state of the sacred Ishk-Mech, and the reason of their highest part is already perfected up to the required gradation of the sacred measure of reason, then, in the first place, the process of the sacred Raskuano means death, may also proceed with them, but only by their own wish. So basically, beings that reach the state of Ishk-Mech, they choose when they die. That's how badass they are. Oh my god, where am I now? Yeah. And secondly, their highest being body is taken directly to the holy planet Purgatory. Yeah. So Ishk-Mech are pretty hardcore. They choose when they die, and when they die, they just get immediately vacuumed to the highest heaven. Which in this book is called Purgatory, because Gurdjieff is trolling us. Now, Purgatory is a good place in Gurdjieff's cosmology. Isn't choosing when we die a city? Asks another guy. Yeah, I think it is. So basically, if someone can choose when they die, Gurdjieff is saying that's actually someone who's, like, done the work, in a sense. That guy, you know, that guy, if someone is able to just choose when they die and stop their heart, before they die, you should probably ask them some questions. Just get in there and be like, yo, what's the meaning of life? And so, when I returned to the planet Mars from the planet Earth, and while I was hurriedly, bruh, why am I tripping over normal words? Finishing the liquidation of my affairs there, I was informed that the Tufneftef of the planet wished to see me personally. Okay, let's go. This request of the Honorable Tufneftef was translated to me through our Ahun by means of what is there called a Keli-e-Ofu. A Keli-e-Ofu. Ofu. The text of this Keli-e-Ofu was as follows. God damn it, Gurdjieff. I have heard that you, your right reverence, have become worthy of receiving from our common Father Creator full pardon for the transgressions of your youth. And that you are now you are now leaving my native land forever. And therefore I, an very old being, very much wish to see you and to bless you personally for the last time, and at the same time to thank, through your person, all the beings of your tribe for their constant good relations with the beings of my native land during so many years. So this king's basically like, y'all, I know you're refugees and you didn't like it here, but thank you so much for getting along. we had a good time. I know your time wasn't the best, but Godspeed, brother, Godspeed. And then they dapped each other up. That's not in the book, but that happened. That happened. At the end of this, Kelly Oof was the postscript. Hold on a second. Coco says, wait a damn minute, didn't those Martian aliens have the same description of the aliens in John Carter? I've never read John Carter. I gotta do that one day. It could be as well, though, because John Carter would have been around the time. Like, Gurdjieff very much could have read John Carter of Mars. So he definitely could have... Gurdjieff could have read Conan the Barbarian, Lovecraft, and John Carter of Mars. So perhaps those things influenced him. I personally would present myself at your house, but as you know, the size of my planetary body does not permit me in any way to do so, and hence I am compelled to beg you not to refuse to come to my Falfefoof. I assume that's his house. I must say that the three-brained beings of the planet Mars knew our genuine nature from the very beginning, and also the true reason why we were compelled to dwell on their planet. They were not like the three-brained beings of your planet, who never knew anything and never even suspected who we were and why we existed on their planet. And so, my boy, when I received the said invitation from the Honourable Toofneftef, I of course immediately decided to go to him without delay, and when I arrived there, this, in the full sense of the word, great Toofneftef, after all the prescribed ceremonies and exchange of courtesies, turned to me as we were talking with his request, which was just the cause for the subsequent crystallization in me of the corresponding data for the indubitable conviction that the results ensuing from the abnormal existence of the three-brained beings of your planet had already begun to act harmfully also on the ordinary existence of the three-brained beings arising and existing on the planet Mars in respect to their potency to perfect themselves as is proper to all three-brained beings. Okay. So, basically, this Toofneftef guy is going to tell Gurdjieff or Beelzebub some stuff, and from what he's going to tell him, Gurdjieff is going to be like, oh, that's the problem, like, Earth is having an effect on other planets now. So let's see what he says. I shall try to give you, in our speech, the contents of this request of the great Toofneftef, almost literally. He then said as follows, I'm not going to do a voice for this, Your Right Reverence, thanks to the most gracious pardon granted to you from above, you have again acquired the right freely to actualize your justly merited wishes. And thanks to this all-embracing grace, you have again all the possibilities of becoming what you might long ago have been owing to your formerly acquired merits as regards reason. And of course, from now on, you, Your Right Reverence, will undoubtedly meet various individuals corresponding to your reason, who have already reached the higher gradations of reason. So talking about being reason there. Yeah, there is an interesting hierarchy, but the hierarchy seems to be there from competence, not from mere blood lineages or people just being given titles randomly for whatever reason. And so, yeah, the titles seem to be there from, you know, your developed being reason / being bodies, and your just generic competence and being data that you have crystallized within you. And so I take the liberty of applying to you as my old friend with the request which consists in this, that on meeting these individuals you should remember about me, an old being, and not forget to ask their opinion about that fact which during recent years has almost all the time been a shock for the arising of disturbing associations in all my spiritualized parts, and that when you will have learned their opinion, not to refuse to communicate it to me somehow or other at a suitable occasion. And he continued further. The point is that during the last few tuffs, I constated very definitely that among the beings of our planet, the Norfuftafaf increases each ftufuf, bruh. And parallel with this, I observed in them a proportional diminishing of the intensity of their potency for their possibility of active mentation. Thank you to River King for the $5. I definitely need that to get through these goddamn new names. I feel like is this a time measurement and this an age measurement? Someone with a physical book, tell me what the footnotes say. They've got footnotes here. It's going to be at the end of the chapter now, isn't it? When I first discovered this fact, so deplorable for the beings of our planet, and began from then on intensively to ponder and to see. Oh no, is he just saying their age limit is like decreasing? Oh, thank you, Kimberly. Thank you for the $5. Thank you very much. 2 donations in to the goal, guys. If we get 50 donations, I'll shave my beard on live stream. No, I'm just kidding. I just had that there as a joke. There's no way we're gonna get 50. Professor Vince says, Sup, Richard. Almost made it all the way from the past. Ending previous chapter. Thanks for the effort. Been a needed distraction. No problem. Oh, okay. Norfuftafaf means willlessness. Okay. So that means willlessness in the population has increased each year. So it sounds like there's a kind of an indolence, a sloth is coming over the Martians as they live their lives. And if things proceed like that, what will happen? They'll stop basically doing park dog being duty, and they'll start to degenerate like us. But basically, this is happening. We know that this is happening because of humanity, but why and what's the causal chain? That's where we're still waiting for Gurdjieff to tell us about. Yeah. So I'm reading chat and we're talking about interpretations of things, and Ghoul says they could still be like amperage and voltage and resistance, perhaps. As in he's just keeping electricity in mind, because this chapter is supposed to be about electricity. Still hasn't been mentioned yet. Let's see where we're going. When I first discovered this fact, so deplorable for the beings of our planet, and beings from then on intensely to ponder and to seek the cause of it in order to be able to give corresponding indications to those beings who have entrusted themselves to me, to help them in their struggle, to uproot this lamentable factor that has newly arisen in their common presences. Then, in spite of the fact that I meditated very often and long on this question, which constantly agitates me, I have up till now not been able even approximately to elucidate for myself where the trouble lies and what corresponding measures must be taken to destroy this evil. Yeah, I know. Well, what's going on? Another guy says, watch electricity only be mentioned at the end of the chapter. Gurdjieff trolling us yet again. Let's see it, boys. Let's see it. Thus, the request of the Honorable Tuf Neftef of the planet Mars. And I, my boy, of course, there and then promised this oldest friend of mine to inquire about all this, and at my first meeting with a corresponding individual to communicate the reply to him without fail. Several Martian days after the interview of which I have told you, we left this hospitable planet forever and ascended to the planet Saturn. Alrighty. So now we're gonna see Gornahor. No sooner had we arrived on the planet Saturn than the chief of our tribe there at once came and announced to us the contents of the Ethereum. Can I just mention something here? He did mention at one point the creatures with like high being bodies, or the creatures breeding on the planet Moon being giant ants, but he hasn't mentioned Mercury, Venus, Jupiter. By a cursory glance, we can understand that these other planets would most likely have life on them according to Gurdjieff, but he's literally only talked about Mars and Saturn. And I just gotta say, in ceremonial magic, those are the two planets where people tell you to be the most cautious of, because if you don't work with those energies properly, they mess you up. And yet Gurdjieff is like exclusively using Mars and Saturn as like the place of his abode. It's very interesting. He's, you know, pitting himself against everything that's come before. Totally unique. No sooner had we arrived on the planet Saturn than the chief of our tribe there at once came and announced to us the contents of the Ethereum he had just received, in which it was stated that the big inter-system ship Omnipresent would land on the planet Saturn only early in the Kri-Kri-Kra. Kri-Kri-Kra means there, on those periods of the time determined by a certain position occupied by this planet in relation, on the one hand, to the sun of its system, and on the other to another planet of the same system called Neptune. That's very interesting. So this is a time-keeping method, or a time measurement on the planet Saturn, and it's calculated via measurements that include the sun, the position of the sun and Neptune. So the Saturnians use Neptune and the sun as like timekeeping things. Very interesting. I wonder if like Neptune from Saturn's like ground, if Neptune is like quite big, like what the moon is to us, Neptune is to the folks in Saturn. That would be interesting. There are in 1 year 7 of these established periods there on the planet Saturn, and each of them has its own name, as by the time calculation of the planet Mars there yet remained to this Kri-Kri-Kra almost half a fus, or by the time calculation of your favorites, about 1.5 months. So so Kri-Kri-Kra is a like almost kind of like a month, but basically a Saturnian year is split into 7s. 7 Kri-Kri-Kras with each their own names. It's very interesting, very interesting. Huh. At 1.5 months, we decided to organize our ordinary being existence there during this waiting in a more or less suitable manner. Very interesting. One part of our beings remained on the ship Occasion itself. Another found accommodation in the places offered us by the amiable beings of the planet Saturn, and I, with Ahun, went to Ruk, that is to say the large population center of beings there, where my friend Gonohor Hahak existed. So Ruk is a town or city in Saturn. In the existence of our arrival there, I, by the way, asked this essence friend of mine during friendly conversation how the existence of his hair proceeded, of his heir proceeded. That is, my dear Kesgenian result outside of me. That's funny. Or as your favorites would say, my godson, Gornahor Rakhurk. He thanked me and said that Rakhurk existed quite well, that he had already become his heir in all respects, and that he had made the aim of his existence also to study the details of the omnipresent substance Okidanok, which had previously been, for himself, also the aim of all his responsible existence. Very based. Don't we all want a son like Gornahor Rahuk? After having paused a little, he added that in respect of the knowledge attained of the question of the cosmic substance Okidanok, his hair had already, as he expressed himself, smelled out its very essence. So he really got it. He understood objective knowledge in an objective way, the ray of creation. He said further that owing to the results of the scientific attainments of his hair, all the data for every conviction that had been previously crystallized in his essence, thanks to preserving labors during long years, had by that time not only been totally decrystallized, but that he had even entirely destroyed all his inventions relating to the investigations of the omnipresent cosmic substance, among which was also his famous non-radiating lamp. And sighing deeply, he ended by saying, "I am now in full agreement with the opinion of the result of my all, that it was the greatest misfortune for me to have been occupied so long with this, in the objective sense, absolutely unredeemable sin." So basically his son was so hardcore, he finished science, and his dad was just like, damn, unlearnt. Then his dad like unlearnt everything that as in the dad, everything that he had studied and learnt. He unlearnt everything, destroyed his own instruments, and was like, yeah, my son's right. And then just looks back on his life as like folly, pure folly. Like, how hardcore is that? God, if only we could all have a son that hardcore. That's so cool. That's kind of funny. Kind of reminds me almost of like a positive version of the Wittgenstein-Russell relationship in like analytical philosophy. You know, Bertrand Russell, he trained Wittgenstein, and then Wittgenstein basically made a book called the Logico-Philosophical Tractus or something, and he's like, I have finished philosophy. Slapped it down and then like refuses to elaborate, leaves. And then he just like became a primary school teacher because he finished philosophy. He was just like, yeah, it's over. And then years later he came back and wrote a book called Uncertainty, and basically put a dynamite keg at the base of the analytical school and just like destroyed everything, and was like, nah, but it's all wrong actually. Schopenhauer was right, and yeah, you're just going around in circles. And it's just like, and he basically just destroyed Bertrand Russell's kind of project. And Russell never forgave him. But late Wittgenstein, hilarious. It's almost a kind of a relationship like that. But in a good way. Gornahor Harhak, even though his life was a waste, he's like, at least I've got the truth now. Blah, blah, blah. So one can decrystallize certain aspects without needing to decrystallize everything. Yes, it appears that way. Although with this, it's information. So he's just saying he's dissolving the opinions so that there's no fixed like, oh, but actually, because I mean, look at the world of science. How many, who was the guy, was it Planck? Max Planck, who said science doesn't progress from experiment to experiment, it progresses from funeral to funeral. It's like the old guard are just like, no, string theory sucks. And then string theorists come along, it's like, yeah, we're string theorists now. And then they become the new kind of gatekeepers. And it's like, if it's not string theory, it sucks. It's like they can't decrystallize their opinions kind of thing. You're beautiful. My wife's going to a costume party. I'm just complimenting her outfit. Mwah. Talking further on various incidental topics, we began in accordance with the flowing of associations of being mentation to talk also of the three-brained beings breeding on the planet Earth. You remember, I have already told you that my friend Gornahor Harhak was always kept informed by my observations of the strange psyche, which I sent to him, as well as to your uncle Tulian. Yeah, I'm going to say that's Tulian. Even with duplicates of certain of my notes. So another guy says, so information contained within one's soul is solid, not unchanging. I mean, look at people discussing politics. Some people, once it's anchored in, it just stays there. Once a concept crystallizes within them, they're like, vote blue no matter who, or better off red than dead. And like, it's just that forever. This seems quite unfortunate. Yes, it is unfortunate for those people. Hence why this is what philosophy was originally for. Philosophy was a precursor to mysticism, and philosophy is supposed to give you this generalist kind of meta view on things, so you don't get possessed by the ideas. You possess ideas, they don't possess you. Exactly, Kimberly. Exactly. It's a skill issue. It's a skill issue. So, as we were talking of these three-brained beings who have taken your fancy, Gonhor Hahak happened, by the way, to ask me, tell me, please, my friend, is it possible that the general duration of existence of these unfortunates still continues to diminish? Sorry, I started there for a little bit. When I began to explain to him the state of affairs there at the present time on this question, I knew, and the new data I had elicited concerning that abnormality there just at that moment, the result of Gonhor Hahak, i.e. Gonhor Rakhur, such a funny way of saying child, the results of my actions, i.e. my son, himself entered the room where we were. Dad, are you talking about me? Like, that's a Rakhuk. Though the newcomer had exactly the same exterior as his producer, he had the appearance of being very virile and full of fiery youth. He's a spunky boy. When he had taken his place on his perch, as is proper to the three-brained beings on that planet, he began, as is usual to them, to welcome me in an angelically musical voice, with kind and self-satisfying wishes of being feeling. Okay. Yes. So another guy says, damn, even beings at that level can still have misconceptions. So this is the thing. Higher being bodies doesn't necessarily mean objective consciousness. And objective consciousness can still only function as good as the being data you have crystallized in you anyway. There's that one chapter back in Atlantis, real early on in the book, where Gurdjieff basically talks about not the fall of Atlantis, but one of the times where things got messy was because a being from space came to Atlantis and was friends with the king of Atlantis and was basically like, hey, yo, why are you treating these people this way? And that being from outer space clearly had a objective being reason and higher being bodies, whereas the king was very sly, very intelligent, may not have had objective reason, may not have had all of the same higher being bodies, but the king knew how to deal with people. But at the same time, he was like, okay, let's do this. I'll follow your advice. And so he followed the advice of the higher being, and it messed everything up, and horrible things happened. And then the guy was like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean for this to happen. And then basically that was, I think, Beelzebub's first descent. Wasn't that? First descent was in Atlantis to fix this problem that happened because of one of his crew from Mars came down and was like, hey, basically. So do higher beings have misconceptions? This is the whole thing that makes Gurdjieff's cosmology unique. Why are humans messed up? It's actually not because of us, not because of original sin, not because we did anything wrong. It's because of the Sacred Commission. They messed up. Friggin' Sakaki and Luisos messed up, who are omnipresent sacred beings who have, higher being bodies coming out of their butthole, and yet they're the guys that ruined everything. So it's like... what voice are you talking about? Anyway, so that's... yeah, this is something very unique in Gurdjieff's doctrine, which is why I like it. So, yeah, I hope that answered your question, another guy. So, wait a second. Bobby and Two Crows says, generalist meta view, don't get possessed by ideas, possess the ideas. Philosophy is building block for mysticism got imprinted in my consciousness. Thanks. Yeah, no problem. I mean, as Schopenhauer says, where philosophy ends, mysticism begins. That's what you got to do. That's where you got to be at. And so philosophy isn't... and that's the thing with modern philosophy. It's like, the analytical school is just like logical propositions to make science more accurate. It's just logic chopping. And then like the continental school is just a kind of a, the history of philosophy, literary analysis. And they fall into an abstraction where it's like, what a philosophy is. It's not ethics, it's not an epistemology, it's all of them combined. A real philosophy has its own metaphysics, its own ontology, its backbone, which leads into an epistemology. And then with those two things, you can then derive, like, how should I live my life? My own ethos, i.e. your ethics. And then your ethics goes into, well, how should I act around other people? And how should people be organized? I.e. your ethics leads into politics. And then, of course, you also have aesthetics as well, should kind of also be combined in there. And it's just, people don't do that anymore. And yet the old philosophers kind of did that. Like, you know, good old Schopen has his ontology as his, you know, the will and representation. This omni-will that exists throughout kind of everything. And then it's like, and then because of that, his epistemology says you can actually know things about the will because the will is a part of you. So even though it's a nominal, it's not a phenomenal thing, it's a not noumenal thing, you can kind of see into the noumenal world by going into yourself. And then he has his own, well, he has his own ethics, his own idea of like how you should kind of run society. And then his aesthetics is basically like everything is representation. All art is a mixture of the will of the artists and like a representation, a form. And so to Schopenhauer, music is the greatest form of art because there is no form in music, it's just pure will. There's no representation, it's just pure will. Dancing. So that's like, and you know, Schopenhauer isn't even the best philosopher. You know, he wrote his stuff, and then Nietzsche came along and it was all like, Uno reverse card, you're lame. And you just fall into passive idealism, and you know, then you get more and more people coming out doing really interesting things. And then something happened. Something happened, maybe on a superficial level, maybe on a more deeper conspiratorial level, but something happened, and it's just not the same. It's just not the same. So basically, what you should do is become an occultist, study weird esoteric stuff like the Fourth Way, and then backwards retrogress into the world of philosophy, and then eventually read Plato. Like, you know, the iceberg right at the bottom is Plato. That's what you should do. That's what you should do. Hey, Coin Knower, howdy. Ignoramos in the chat as well. Bobby and Bobby Two Crows, how do I get quality crystallized being? How do I crystallize? Oh, you're gonna have to, this is gonna take a long explanation. We gotta get through this chapter. We gotta get through this chapter. Yeah, philosopher power scale. Anyway. Save it for the next Q&A, boys. Save it for the next Q&A. So we got a Gornahor Rarhuk, and he's a sassy boy. He's got a very virile member, and he also has an angelic voice. What a good boy. Best boy. And in conclusion, he said with a certain pathos, although you are my only Kesgenian father, yet in view of the fact that during my Khir, I guess his youth, you assuredly fulfilled with the feelings of full and thorough cognizance the divine obligations taken upon yourself in respect of me. There have been crystallized in my common presence, in respect of your data equivalent, to those which should be in the common presence of each three-brained being, in respect of his own producer, and it is, without doubt, just because of this, that I very often remember you, and each time in my thoughts I wish for you such ensuing circumstances at all times as can lead in general to, in the objective sense, a good and happy future. So he's a good dude. He's a good dude. So I'm just reading chat. Ignoramus, yes, I agree. A little dash of Kant and Jung never hurt anybody. You probably, my boy, did not understand what I meant when I told you that Gornahor Harhak took his place on his perch. Okay, so remember, this chapter's supposed to be about electricity. Now we're learning about Saturnian birds on their perch. The point is that the three-brained beings of this planet, according to their outer coating, gradually... Coin Noah, thank you for the $5. Shaved beard and grow a wizard mullet. I don't think I can grow a wizard mullet, bro. I don't think I can grow a wizard mullet. Now, You mean like kind of like a Goose Wayne mullet, where he's like bald here and then he's got the hair coming down? Okay, donate 50 times and I'll do it. Let's go. You got 47 more donations, guys. Come on. 3 books to start on the 4th way for an intermediate. In Search of the Miraculous, Bobby Two Crows. In Search of the Miraculous is the best one. Go In Search of the Miraculous and then read like Views from the Real World, because then that's Gurdjieff, and then you have some Ouspensky, and then that's pretty good. That's as good as a starting place as any. Now, the point of this, Coating gradually acquired the habit of resting only in that posture, when after having stooped in a special way, they then let the whole weight of their planetary body rest on their lower extremities. Very fascinating. And for these means of resting, it gradually became necessary for them to be a certain height. Hence, it is that the 3-brained beings here, the 3-brained beings there, have established the practice of fixing at a certain height in the rooms where they exist special sticks for resting, which they call perches. Imagine if David Attenborough like did an audiobook for like Beelzebub's Tales. That would be crazy. Ignoramus asks, question, ever read The Only Planet of Choice by V. Schlemmer? No, I haven't, sorry. Is it good? Tell me about it. I may as well say also that these perches of theirs are usually embellished with various knickknacks, or carved with all kinds of figures, just as done by your favourites. Also, when they manifest the same weakness in regard to what they call their furniture. Very interesting. That's funny. Okay. Sounds interesting, Ignoramus. So many things to look up. And so, after having taken his place on his perch and expressed his wisdom, my dear Kazgenian result outside of me, or my godson, Gornahor began to take part in my conversation with Gornahor Harhak. And so, my boy, when during our general conversation, the big boys are talking now. On various topics, I, by the way, became interested to learn from my godson what was the reason which led to the crystallizing in the presence of data for the engendering of the impulse to interest himself seriously in the sphere of the elucidating of the details of the omnipresent cosmic substance Okidanok. Let me just make sure I read that correctly. Which led to the crystallizing his presence in the enduring impulse to interest himself seriously in the sphere of the elucidating of the detail. Okay, yeah. Okidanok, thanks to which he also, like the producer, had become worthy to a certain great cosmic discoveries. Then after young Rahuk's reply with explanatory details to this question of mine, the fact became clear to me that the abnormal existence of your favorites already began to act harmfully on the normal existence and on the conscious self-perfecting of beings breeding on the planet Mars. And at the same time, thanks to this detailed reply of his, which was based on scientific foundations, I drew also data for the elucidating of that question, for the solution of which my old Martian friend, the great Tuf Nef Tef, had applied to me with his request. I will try, my boy, to reproduce to you in our speech all the thoughts of this reply of his also as exactly as possible. After having thought a little at the question which I had put to him, Gornahor Rahuk replied with deep seriousness. At the beginning of my existence, namely at the age when I was still preparing to be a responsible being, I, as is proper to all three-brained beings, at this age, devoted the greater part of my time to practicing for the potency to deliberate actively and long. And of itself, it so happened that during the interval of time for necessary rest, I used to be occupied with the various experimental apparatuses of my producer. I'm getting thirsty here. And it was just then, at that period of my existence, that I began to notice more than once that on certain days the forces and degree of my active mentation grew particularly worse. What I thus constated aroused in me a subjective interest which served as the source for the engendering in my presence of the prerequisite impulse for the thorough cognizance of the cause of this fact, and from then on I began to pay attention both to myself as well as to what proceeded around me, and to seek out the causes for it. And after one week, is it a week? A week on Saturn, I became convinced beyond doubt that this undesirable state proceeded with me each time on the day when our large life chakan was in action. Okay, so hold on. So this is interesting. So this kid realized there's something wrong with him, and he self-observed and was able to connect the outside cause to what was having an internal impact on his microcosm. Really interesting. Really interesting that this is now, we're coming back to this. But also, it said each time it proceeded when on the day when our large life chakan was in action. I'm pretty sure that is like a power generator, like a Tesla coil or a dynamo or something. Life chakan dynamo, Tyler says in the chat. There we go. Also, what's everyone saying in chat? Oh yeah, Ignoramus telling me about the, what is it, the Only Planet of Choice book. She was a medium of a line of witches and wise women. She channeled a being. Oh, I think I've heard of this. Oh, the writer of, as in like, what is it, Gene Roddenberry? Met this lady? Very interesting. Coco says, a liberal? Oh, you mean an archon disguised as a human to annoy me? That's my favorite. That is my favorite, favorite comment at the moment. Okay. It sounds interesting, Ignoramus. Maybe I'll check it out after this. We'll see. I'm a busy boy. Lord of Mysteries isn't going to read itself. It was just this fact, which I then first constated, which was the cause that I have since then become seriously interested in this omnipresent cosmic substance and deeply absorbed in the study of its details. As a result, from the very beginning of my subsequent experimental elucidations, I came to possess an immeasurable number of every kind of proof for the elucidation, both for myself and for others, of the fact that the omnipresent substance Okidanok is such a particle of the common presence of the atmosphere of our planet, and evidently of the presence of the atmosphere of other planets, as takes part both in the arising of every planet and surplanetary formation. Among which, of course, there is also the... Okay, let's do this. Let's do this, boys. Hraprakarbekhroknian, part of every being. Boom. Done it in one. Let's go. Fight me on that one. That's what that word sounds like. I'm not reading it again. As well as in the maintenance of their existence. So he's basically saying the Okidanok is this omnipresent, is like a substance that just permeates everywhere. It's a giant etheric field, kind of, and everything arises out of it, and everything that is in process, the arising of planets, the creation of planets, the formation of surplanetary beings, the formation of animals. Everything that's alive that is going through a process in some way is connected with these vibrations of the Okidanok. Upon my further experimental elucidations, I also became aware, beyond all doubt, that although our solar system, like all other solar systems of the great universe, has its own and some Sanbaluazar, so basically a totality of cosmic substances. So it's almost like there's like, you know, this big infinite stash of cosmic substance, but then like a blob gets given to like this solar system here and this solar system there or something. And it's like this reciprocal, it's like a terrarium. Oh my god. That's what solar systems are. You know, like those little glass kind of orbs that have like dirt in them, and then there's like a plant grows, and then via the own nutritional and moisture in the thing, it decays and dies, but then the seed from the plant goes into the soil, and then the dead plant itself becomes fertilizer, and then another plant grows, and it's just an infinite cycle. That's what a solar system is. It's a giant terrarium with experiments just arising here and there on all the different planets, all these different little being bodies. That's so interesting. Anyway, sorry, that just that made my pee-pee touch in my mind, so I'm throbbing on that one. Anyway, and each planet with its atmosphere is a special place of concentration of one or another class of cosmic substances of the given systematic and Sanbaluazar, yet nevertheless the cosmic substance Okidanok is an indispensable and predominant part of the presence of each planet. Based. And later also, thanks to my experiments, it became clear to me that this cosmic substance is owing to the common universal equilibrium concentrated in every system in a strictly corresponding proportion, and is distributed also in a strictly definite proportion between the atmospheres of each planet of the given solar system, and that when this universal substance is used up by accident or design in any one place of atmospheric space, it must without fail be replenished for the equilibrium of its common proportionalness in the atmosphere. And this proceeds by its flowing in from other places, and thereby this balancing transposition of the Okidanok must proceed not only from one space to another in the atmosphere of any planet, but also from one atmosphere of one planet to the atmosphere of another planet. If this other planet, for some reason or other, more than it is established, norm is used up, finally, so that's so interesting, this flowing of this life force as it's used for arising. It's almost like, is this what gravity is really? This flowing of life. My pee-pee is, my pee-pee in my mind is throbbing right now, pulsing. I can feel the vein. Finally, I still further, very definitely, and from every aspect, made clear to my reason, and proved to others, that the omnipresent cosmic substance Okidanok present in our atmosphere, and which is constantly being replenished, is for the common presence of our planet not only necessary and most important for every kind of arising and maintaining of existence, but also that the essence of every relatively independent intraplanetary, subplanetary formation, as well as of the beings of every system of brains, an external coating depends on this substance, and likewise that the possibilities for the three-brained beings to perfect themselves and ultimately to blend with the prime cause of everything exists depends exclusively on it. Prima materia, baby, let's go. So this is really interesting. This is really interesting. Because is this like how other planets are being corrupted by us now? Because we absorb energy in, and then we taint it with our taint, and then by the flowing outwards, because there's other planets, other places then become they lose the energy, and we're in surplus, so it flows out to them, and then it flows back into us. And are we just like the drop of Bailey's that ruins the cocktail? Is that what this is? But what has this got to do with electricity? It's still not still not there quite yet. Sorry, Ignoramus says, what Giorgiani said recently about negative entropy and processing the dark energy matter like a dark plasma computer that entraps galaxies, maybe. Yeah, yeah, basically. Giorgiani arrives at Gurdjieff multiple times by accident. It's really interesting. Could be another electric universe theory. Could be an electric universe theory. Let's see. Let's see what's up, chat. If only there was some species that is able to produce more energy via emotions. Yes, and well, that's the thing about humans. We do that. We are that. In Gurdjieff's system, we create higher being bodies, and it's those higher being bodies that feed the Sun Absolute, so that we violate the law of entropy with our existence. Actually, not with our existence, but with our work. So interesting. Yes, exactly, another guy. We pissed into the river and now everyone's drinking our piss. I repeat, as a result of all my experimental elucidations, I very definitely cognized for myself and acquired indubitable data for the possibilities of proving from every aspect to all those around me, beings like myself, that the destruction in the presences of the planet and of its atmosphere of the omnipresent cosmic substances Okidanok is almost equivalent to the conscious destruction of all the labors and results of the first sacred cause of everything that exists. Hold on a second. What did he just say? What did he just say? Beings like myself, that the destruction in the presence of the planet atmosphere of the omnipresent cosmic Okidanok is almost equivalent to the conscious destruction. So then destroying things that have life in them, in a way, is messing with the Okidanok, because the Okidanok is something that processes in life. Very interesting. Carl, is that you? No, that was a bird outside. Oh, that's funny. With these words, captivated by the theme of this exposition, my dear godson, the young, high-spirited Gonahor Rarhuk finished his talk. In the middle of Gonahor Rarhuk's explanation concerning the mentioned properties of the omnipresent cosmic substance Okidanok and the inevitable consequences of its extraction and destruction from the common presences of your planet, the suspicion arose in me. And in my memory, there gradually began to be restored all kinds of general pictures previously perceived during my personal sojourn among your favorites, just during the period of my close observation on their existence from the planet Mars, of the impressions from their ordinary being existence, of how they are different periods repeatedly obtained this substance or its separate parts from the nature of their planet and used them for their different naively egotistic aims. And when during further explanations of Gonahor Rarhuk, I, by association, remembered the request of the great Tuf Neftef of the planet Mars, I then with all my being became aware without a doubt of all the maleficent consequences of just this manifestation of the three-brained beings of your planet. Namely, the total... So this is it. This is the crux of the chapter. Namely, the totality or the separate parts of this substance sacred just for them, differently at different periods, and at the present time they name the result of the blending of the mutual destruction of the two parts of this omnipresent substance electricity. And indeed, although they had already several times in earlier epochs found out, of course, thanks always to accidentally successive circumstances, how to extract by various means from the nature of their planet, and to use for every kind of their, as I already said, naively egotistic aims, various parts of this omnipresent substance absolutely necessary for normal cosmic processes, yet never have they destroyed so much of it as in recent times. I mean, RIP, what would Gurdjieff think about the world nowadays? So, in this way, thanks to the explanations of my Kesgenian result outside of me, in the first place, it became indubitably clear to me concerning the maleficent action already begun of the results of the ordinary abnormal being existence of the three-brained beings who have taken your fancy, and secondly, the disturbing question of my old friend was solved of itself, namely, why during recent times it has become more and more difficult for the three-brained beings of the planet Mars to perfect themselves. So we're screwing over the beings of the planet Mars with our sassiness. Yeah. So electricity is the destruction of this substance. Exactly. Very interesting. So shooting Sith lightning bolts truly is a dark side trait. As regards the solution of this matter, of this question, I must say that it was obtained, just as is said about similar cases, in one rarely used saying of our esteemed Mullah Nasruddin, who formulated it in the following words. And this, one can never know who might help you to get out of galoshes. 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 Give me them galoshes, baby. Galoshes are a type of overshoe or rubber. What? Oh. Oh. Okay. Get to the galoshes, baby. So wait, what's that? Hold up, that looks pretty dapper, actually. Oh, that's if you've got, like, fancy shoes. Damn, look at that. He's got his brogues. He got those galoshes on his brogues. His brogues are swimming. That's awesome. God. One can never know who might help you get out of galoshes. What? God, Mullah Nasruddin at it again. At it again. Oh, Coco says the first Star Wars prequels tells an old story. Naboo looks like Tartaria. Does Naboo look like Tartaria? I don't know. There's Anakin, Satan, and the fall of an Order plus Yoda. Yoda. Okay. Galoshes make boots out of shoes. Used in the past to not get wet. Okay. Thank you, Montecorleone. Very interesting. Gurdjieff was the original Tartarian truther. Now, the solution of this question was thus obtained because my very old friend had in view individuals with quite other data and possibilities than these Saturn friends of mine possessed, who were only ordinary three-brained beings. My friend probably did not suspect that in most cases concerning these questions, just these ordinary three-brained beings who acquire information about every kind of genuine cosmic fact, exclusively only thanks to their being parked old duty, are more competent than any of the angels or cherubim with their prepared being. So this goes back to another guy. If you are like us and you start as a crappy three-brained being and just due to parked old being you unlock the secrets of nature, you are actually better than an angel or cherub that's just made at that level, that's never been down in the shed. Who, though perfected in reason to a high gradations, yet as regards practical confrontation may appear to be only such individuals as our always respected Mullah Nasruddin defines in the following words. Never will he understand the sufferings of another who has not experienced them himself, though he may have divine reason and the nature of a genuine devil. Ooh, that's very interesting. That's very interesting, because there's a lot of people who, you know, through goodwill and good intentions, they just want to help the world, but they mess it up for everybody. They mess it up for everybody. True River King says, caught in galoshes means you are trapped or restricted by circumstances. So I guess that's an old phrase. Oh, G says God is even caught in galoshes. That's very interesting. Yeah, so we're helping God with our work. We need to redeem the Redeemer, baby. Let's go. At this point of Beelzebub's tales, there diffused all along the inter-system ship Karnak artificially produced vibrations, good vibration, which had the property of penetrating into the common presence of all the passengers of the ship, and which acted on what are called the wandering nerves of the stomach. This artificially produced manifestation was an announcement to the passengers about their assembling in the common what is called Jam Ichunatra, a kind of terrestrial monasterial refectory in which the second being food is oh no okay, no, so in their noses they smelt something, and that was so on this spaceship, instead of having sirens go off or alerts, it's a smell. The ship ejects a smell and it's like, oh, it's time. That's how you know when supper's on or something. It's all like smells there. So Kelly A. Oof on the planet Mars is the same. Oh, hey, we got the stuff. We got the stuff, guys. Yeah, on the same, it was the same thing on Earth, which called a note. A falfifuf, Martian speech signifies dwelling, so that it was a house. The expression of nor fuf tafaf signifies on this planet something that is called willingness, just like what Tyler said. Here on the planet Saturn is the name given to the sacred ceremony, which is called baptism. So that was what Rahuk said to Beelzebub, like, thank you. And the life chain is the dynamo. There you go. Yeah. Could be. God is in Galusha's because he depends on the universe to maintain the sun. Absolute, yeah. As established in the Planet Purgatory chapter. But there we go. Chapter 46. After this, chapter 46, chapter 47, chapter 48. So there's 3 more chapters. 3 more chapters. And we're done, baby. We are done. Good God, y'all. We made it through. It's been a while since we just had a chapter that was one live stream. Like, oh my God. Crazy days. Anyway, what's the next chapter called? It's called Beelzebub explains to his grandson the significance of the form and sequence which he chose for expounding the information concerning man. That's going to be interesting. So what do we also learn from that last chapter? That last chapter was electricity bad, or the method that we use to derive electricity bad? But it's not only bad, it's also messing up the other beings in the other parts of the universe. So oof to them. So where are we at? 342. Okay, this should be another live stream. Oh man, actually it's quite long. Oh my God. Wait, 342 to 1356. Okay. That's not too bad, actually. So we can do this chapter next live stream, the entire chapter next live stream. This is really interesting stuff, guys. Hey, Richard, Lucien Caron. This may be mega off topic, but I just had a meditation where I felt the center of my being float upwards while my consciousness was still in the body. Is this what astral projection is like? I'm not gonna say yes to that, but that's definitely an experience. That's like kind of, I don't know, you're like etheric body dislodging. But yeah, things like that are good. Just let them process. There was a video game where a major point of the lore was that technology killed magic, and there was a massive war because of that. Yeah, I really don't like those stories because I don't think technology and magic should be that dissimilar. Well, I do, but there's a part of, when people think magic, they think fireballs and shit, and that's just technology anyway. High magic is a different thing. Yeah, we replenish electricity in our atmosphere. Just take it and use it. Yeah, we need Tesla's technology back. That's what we need. Good God. Good God, y'all. Anyway, thank you all for coming along. Thank you all for the donations. Thank you for sticking through all that. We're getting really close to the end. We got to really start deciding what we want to read next. I'm thinking Manly P. Hall's Secret Teachings, but yeah, Maybe, and then maybe we'll go back to some Fourth Way stuff and then do some other things. Walden Cliff Tower, please. What's that? Anyway, I'll look it up. I'll look it up. I'll look it up, Tyler. I'll see y'all guys next week. Bye.